are going to go backwards. I'm going to give you a graph, and we're going to write the equation, okay? This will help solidify some of the process of graphing, okay? If we can work backwards, then we can work forwards as well. So let's chat about what do we need to identify from the equation to write the graph, or to draw the graph. What do we identify first usually? We identify the amplitude. And what in the equation is our amplitude? Yes.
Positive A.
Okay, positive A. So I'm going to write absolute value of A. If A is negative, what does that do to our graph? Okay, it reflects it. Okay. So working backwards, if it's reflected, we'll know to make A negative. Okay. What's the next thing we identify? The period. Michaela, how do we calculate the period? 2 pi over b. Okay. So if we're looking at a graph and we know the period, we know that that must equal 2 pi divided by b. And we can figure out what b is. Okay. The next thing we identify, the starting point. Okay, Matt, how do we find the starting point?
It's C over B and comma D.
C over B comma D. Okay, so if we know what the x value for the starting point is, we can set it equal to C over B. Okay, if we know the y value of our starting point, we know that it is D. Okay, so basically, to go backwards, we need to find A, B, C, and D in order to write the equation. Okay, that's what we'll need to do. Okay, and we'll probably do it in the same order. Now, some of us we're still kind of struggling with this today. The starting point refers to where our frame starts, not where our graph starts. So please be careful with that. All right. So we're going to go through, well, hopefully 4 examples, if not 3 examples, which should be plenty for you to get the hang of it. All right. So here is our first example. So what I am going to do is, okay, so I've only given you one period. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a frame around it, okay? Because that's kind of what we're used to seeing, right? Well, good enough. Okay. So, first of all, is this a sine or a cosine curve? It's a cosine curve. So I'm going to make a note to myself, hey, this is a cosine curve. Okay? What is our amplitude? 2. We go up 2 and down 2. So our amplitude is 2, which means we know A is 2. Okay? Our graph. One period stretches from x is 0 to x is 2 pi over 3. What is our period? 2 pi over 3. Okay? Now, we need to use that to help us find B. 2 pi over B is our period. How do we calculate period? 2 pi over B. Okay? We have a proportion. We can cross multiply. Or some of you can already see that B is. If you don't see that B is 3, cross multiply. 2 pi B equals 6 pi. Divide by 2 pi, B is 3. Okay? Now remember, our starting point refers to where our frame starts. So this right here is our starting point, 0, 0. And if our starting point is 0, 0, that means C is 0, C over B is 0, right? And then D is 0. So the equation of this graph is y equals positive 2 cosine of 3x. That's it. Okay. Yes.
So if there's not like a coordinate at the beginning, is there 0? Like, since we didn't have it written down as 0, 0.
Well, like this is the origin. Because here's our y-axis and here's our x-axis, so I knew that was the origin. And since that is where our frame is beginning, our starting point 0, 0. Does that make sense? Okay. Example number 2. Okay.
Yes.
Curious?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Kyler's curious. First of all, what kind of graph are we working with? We're working with a sine curve. Okay, this is a sine curve. I'm going to go ahead and draw the frame. Okay? Okay, be careful. What is the amplitude? The amplitude is 4. Okay, we go up 4 and down 4. So our amplitude is 4. However, what is our A value?
Negative.
-4, because our sign is reflected. It goes down first. Okay. Our period, our graph begins at x is 0 and ends at x is 2. How long is the period? 2. Which means 2 pi divided by b needs to equal 2. Cross multiply. What is b? Now our starting point. Here's where we start drawing our frame. What is that coordinate? 0, 2. Okay? Since x is 0, we don't have to worry about c divided by b. Okay? If c divided by b is 0, then obviously c is 0. Okay? And then 2 refers to d. Alright? So we have identified A, B, C, and D. So the equation to this curve, y equals -4 sine of pi x plus 2. So far, so good? And you all worried that I was starting notes with like 12 minutes left, but there's plenty of time still. Okay? We have not done an example, however, where the starting point has a different x value. So that is definitely something we need to go over. Okay, so here's our third example. Okay, so first things first, what kind of curve are we working with? The cosine curve. I'm going to go ahead and draw the frame. what is our amplitude?
Two.
Okay, careful. Our amplitude is 2. However, some of us have noticed that our cosine is a hill instead of a valley. It's reflected. So our A is going to be a negative 2. Good. Now, here's where it gets fun. Our period. Our frame begins at negative pi over 6 and it ends at pi over 2. What is that length?
Seven pi over 6.
Seven pi over 6 would be if it began at positive pi over 6 and ended at, well,
Never mind. I don't know what I did.
I'm not sure either. Okay. 2 pi over 3. Okay. Did you take pi over 2 minus pi over 6?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Pi over 2 minus pi over 6 would get you the length if we began at pi over 6, which is I thought what Amanda did, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay. So if we take pi over 2 minus pi over 6, that would be this length right here. Okay. However, we have this chunk from negative pi over 6 to 0, and we have from 0 to pi over 2. So we have to add those two distances together to get the 2 pi over 3. So 2 pi over 3 equals 2 pi over b. B is 3. Now, our starting point is negative pi over 6, 0. Right? Well, if our starting point is negative pi over 6, 0, then negative pi over 6 has to be c divided by b. Do we know b? Yes, b is 3. So negative pi over 6 is c over 3. So if we multiply that 3 over, c is negative pi over 2. And remember, since c is negative, that means we're adding it inside. Michaela, do you have a question?
I just, yeah. So, when I'm looking for the starting point, so how do we get yeah, the period is
Okay, the period we have to determine the length of that rectangle. And so since we started in the negative area, we had to figure out how much. Okay, so from negative pi over 6 to 0, that was pi over 6. And then we went from 0 to pi over 2. So we took this pi over 6 length and added it to this pi over 6 length.
And Cole Carey, turn off the please. Connor Sager and Cole Carey.
Now, if they were both positive, you would have to subtract those numbers.
okay.
Okay.